Hey everyone, welcome back to Williamson Ridge Outdoors. Today, as you can see, we're standing beside our F-150 once again. I have been, over a period of the last probably 12 months, I've had a little bit of problems with my brakes. And I knew that the brakes actually were bad, but it seemed like that I had to change them a little bit early from what I did the first time. So whenever I got in there and was actually changing the pads and stuff, I went ahead and done the rotors and all that kind of stuff together. And I realized that evidently one of my brake calipers was sticking because I had one set of pads that was just wore completely down into the metal backing, like there was no pad left at all. But then the other side of the truck actually had a fair amount of pad left on it. So it kind of told me, it's like, well, I've got a problem here that's probably, a caliper sticking or, something like that causing that one pad to wear. So I did go ahead and change the calipers on the truck. That actually hasn't solved the problem. And also, whenever I go to stop, I can feel, I hit the brakes and it'll kind of want to go to one side for a second, to kind of veer to one side. And then also, when you let go of the brake, it doesn't have that instant release. It seems like it drags just a little bit before it actually lets go. And then a few days ago, I was driving home from work and I come to a stop and I could smell my brakes were burning. And I was like, oh no, my pad or my whatever the problem was is definitely getting worse, because now they're actually dragging enough to cause the brakes to actually stay hot. So I've been limping it around for the last few days, and knowing that I've already put new calipers and stuff on this truck, the only thing that I feel that is probably could be causing that is actually the brake line itself, or the brake hose, because from the metal lines down to your caliper is actually a rubber hose, and those over time will actually collapse and they get weak, and whenever you push the brakes, they tend to kind of pull together and your brakes don't react nearly as quickly as what they should. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to change these things out and see if that solves their problem. I actually ordered two different ones from Amazon because one of them looked like it came with all the replacement parts that you needed, and the other kit looked like that it was maybe missing a thing or two, but I thought maybe they're just not showing that in the picture. But those are supposed to be made in America versus the other kit that's supposed to be made in China. So I ordered both of them so I could get a look at them and I can show them to you all, and that way you could kind of make a decision on what kit to actually get for this if you have this same problem. So I was studying the brake lines a little bit here, and what I ended up ordering was the AC Delco, because according to Amazon, it says their origin is U.S. It says that these are U.S. product or U.S. made, and on the box itself, it does say Detroit, Michigan back here on the back, but on the brake hose, I'm not going to open this up because I am going to send it back to Amazon, because on the brake hose, there's actually a little tag in here that says Made in China all over it. Also, the brake line itself says Samsung SAE J1401. And Samsung actually was a brand that you could buy on Amazon that was a Chinese knockoff, I guess, of, like the American or whatever. So I was hoping to actually get an American product, but this is Made in China all over it, and it was a little bit more expensive, and I'm assuming because it carries the AC Delco name. So what I am going to end up going with is this Dorman product, and I've actually used some of their stuff before. I actually used one of their battery terminals for this truck on a previous video where we changed out just the battery terminal. So this hose actually says SAE J1401, the same as the other hose. And this is plainly, on the packaging, and also on Amazon said it was made in China, so it's no surprise there that it is overseas. So just one more thing too, the Dorman brake line actually has two different part numbers on it. And whenever I was ordering this, I ordered one for the front left and one for the front right. The AC Delco, I ordered one for the front left and one for the front right, but they actually both have the same part numbers on the box. So I would imagine that it has to do with the mounting hardware that comes on it. They kind of put that for left and right because it does have all the hardware, whereas the AC Delco is kind of a universal side to side because you reuse your mounting hardware that's already there. So let's jump right into this. There's enough talking. Let's get this job done. It shouldn't take too awful long to do. We've got to change the line, then we've got to bleed it out, and then we should be good to go. And hopefully this fixes our brake sticking problem. So I'll kind of show you in here. Right here is our metal hard line coming down from our master cylinder. And this is our first bracket, and we're going to have to take this fitting apart. So as you can see, it's wet right now. I'm actually taking and spraying a little bit of Windex. I mean, you could do any kind of little pressurized water. I don't have a water hose out here right now, so the Windex actually was closest thing to me. But I'm using that because I can kind of hit that with a little bit of pressure and blow some of that loose debris and stuff off there. Plus the Windex will actually dry fairly quickly. So I want to get these places where I'm going to take this brake line apart. I want to get them nice and clean so that we're not putting any debris back into our new brake line whenever we hook it up. But as you can see right here is our first bracket. And then right over here, you've got another bolt. And these are both 10mm bolts. And then we've got one back here on the back of our caliper. And you want to get this one good and clean too, but that's a banjo bolt fitting right there. So we're going to take our 10mm socket and pull this bracket loose. This little wire hose right here actually has a push-in clip. It broke trying to get it out. That thing's been in there 11 years, so I'll have to just get a new clip for that. Not a big deal. For the time being, really to kind of hold it in place, you always put a zip tie around it for a little bit just to hold it against that bracket so it's not moving around. So now before you remove this bolt all the way, you can go ahead and take your 13mm line wrench and go ahead and break that loose. Now the bottom one, we're going to go ahead and take it loose. You should be able to go ahead and loosen this one up the rest of the way. So now we're going to go ahead and take our banjo fitting loose. Wasn't too bad at all. So it can be a little bit tricky getting these clips loose on these lines. This bottom clip actually, you can just pinch it together on the back side and it'll just pop right out. So we're going to put our new brake hose in. This one actually, the part number on this is the H621460. This is the one specified for the driver's side. So as you can see on the new hose, it has all the mounting hardware and stuff on it. The bolt that came out with the pointy end on it is actually the one that's going to go in this top hole. And there's actually a hole back here in the frame that there's a tab that sticks off of this that indexes that into the right position. Same way on this one, there's actually a hole on the frame that will index this bracket into the correct position. So it's not a big deal. On this, we're actually going to take the bottom clip, just goes right into the top hole on our bracket. So it's clipped in. The top one up here, same way, there's a place right here for it. We're just going to push it into place. Now we're going to line our bracket up with our indexing hole in the frame, and it'll kind of hold itself there. And we're going to take our bolt and put it back in. The kit also comes with 2 new copper washers. And you're going to have one on the inside and one on the outside of your banjo fitting. And you also want to make sure that you get the copper washer off of the back side of your caliper. One of them actually was stuck to the old hose, and one of them was actually stuck to the caliper. So I'm also going to make sure that this bolt for the banjo fitting is real good and clean. It wouldn't even hurt maybe to even spray that with some brake parts cleaner just to make sure there's no little dirt particles or anything there. But you can see there's a little tiny hole in here, so this needs to be nice and clean whenever you put it all back together. So this is what we should be looking like on the back side. You can see this little indentation on your hose fitting, so it locks it into place with the tab on your caliper. You've got a copper washer on the outside, you've got one on the inside. So now we're just going to snug that down. We can also go ahead and tighten up our other brackets. We also have a clip here on the line, the replacement line, that there's a little section here on this little hose that this actually goes into that clip. That's good to go. Now we can screw in our brake line to our brake hose. Now this should thread pretty easy to start with. So I'm going to go ahead and get me a zip tie, and I'm just going to put it around this little bracket and then zip tie it to the hole that it's supposed to go in until I can get a new clip for this. So now we're over on the passenger side, and I'm going to go ahead and pull off all the clips that I can, because kind of learning experience from the other side, it seems like that may be easier to do with everything still connected. All right, so I think we salvaged that clip. We should be able to push it back into that hole. So now that we're loose from our brake line, all of our mounts are loose. The one here in the middle actually was already unclipped. So we'll just make sure we re-clip that whenever we go to put this one back in. Both our copper washers actually came off with the line this time, so we don't have to worry about those. So we're going to go ahead and start putting this one back together. Again, it's pretty much just like the other side. You want to index your brackets into your frame mounts and then line up your bolt hole. So you can see there's actually, it's hard to see it here, but there's actually a little hole right here for this tab on the middle bracket to go into, and then you can see your bolt lines up with that hole. Just make sure you're on the right side of your cable. Again, your pointy bolt goes in the top hole. I'm just going to go ahead and start it in just to kind of hold things in place. And then your bolt that's not pointy goes into the middle one. So I'm going to go ahead and line up my brake line and get it started in here. And go ahead and put this in the clip here. We've got the clip up here in the side of the bracket. We can go ahead and put this line in. That one's back in place. We can go ahead and put our, well, I'm going to leave that one loose actually so we can get to the brake line. And again, down here on the bottom one, where the caliper, or where the line comes into the caliper, we're going to put a copper washer on the inside of the bolt. And then we want to have one on the outside against the caliper. And then you can see on your hose here, it's got this little cutout so that it matches up on your brake rotor so that it actually gets in there good and solid, and you can't turn that line, it'll hold it in position. We'll go ahead and tighten up my brackets. And we'll go ahead and tighten up my upper brake line. And we'll go ahead and put my clip in, my upper clip. Now we need to tighten up our bottom banjo bolt. And now we should be ready to bleed the brakes. So after you get your brake lines changed out, you've got to bleed those lines. So what we're going to use today, I've already tore the package all to pieces, but this is the Pittsburgh from Harbor Freight brake line bleeder set. And what this one is really for, it's a one-person kit so that you don't have to get in your vehicle and pump your brakes. I actually have a one-person bleeder, but you hook it up to your brake line, then you have to get into your vehicle and you have to push your brakes and then come back out and check your brake line. This is supposed to eliminate that, so we're going to try that out today too. So we're going to get this thing put together and then hopefully get our brake lines bled. We're still on the passenger side right now because that is the farthest from the brake master cylinder. I don't know if this holds true or not, but I've just been told all my life that whenever you're bleeding your brakes, you start from the farthest from the master cylinder. So you'd work your way around to the back passenger side, to the back driver side, front passenger side, and then the one that's closest, which is the front driver side. That's the way I've always been told. I don't know if that's true. Maybe some of the mechanics out there can comment on this video and let me know if that rings true. So we went up to our master cylinder and we went ahead and took the cap off. We went ahead and topped it off with brake fluid so that when we pull a vacuum on this, that it doesn't pull that dry and bring air into the system. Now I've been doing this for a little while. It's taken me, I don't know, that's probably 6 or 7 times that I've done this so far. So this has taken way too long with that vacuum pump. I don't know if you're supposed to crack open the valve and just keep pumping it. It doesn't say to do that. It says to pump it up and then open the valve and let the vacuum pull it through. What I'm gonna do is go back to our old system and I'm gonna hook this thing up and then I'm gonna go in there and pump the brakes a few times. With this bottle, you wanna keep it held above your brake system. I'm going to attach it up here to the control arm. So it should sit there long enough for us to pump that a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the valve up. And with that being above there, you have to pump that up and then it keeps the air out of the system. Looks like I might not have been patient enough with it because the line's already filling up with fluid. So the vacuum pump may have been working just fine, but I just wasn't patient enough with it. So the way this one-person bleeder system is supposed to work is that whenever this line is full and has no bubbles in it, then that's the way that it should work right there. So that actually looks pretty good right there. But what I'm gonna do, I wanna go ahead and put the vacuum pump back on it and see if it continues to pull bubbles through it or whether it actually had cleared up and I just didn't wait long enough. I'm coming to the conclusion that this thing must have an air leak in it. It must not be getting a good seal on there, even though it seems like that it is, and it seems to be pulling a vacuum through the system, but it must not be actually keeping a seal on the fitting itself. So I don't know if I got a faulty system or what the deal is, but that pump I cannot get to work. I've been reading the directions and I have read them numerous times to confirm that I'm using it correctly. So I'm going right back to this again because from the looks of it, the lines were nice and clear and clean whenever I hooked this up a minute ago. So I'm gonna do it again and just make sure, I'm gonna push the pedal one more time and make sure that there are no air bubbles in it. So our hose looks like it is completely free of any bubbles whatsoever. So we can go ahead and close this one off. All right, so we're back to the driver's side now. And I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed in that Harbor Freight brake bleeder tool. This little simple bottle also came from Harbor Freight and it was only like $2 or $3 or something. And it is by far working a whole lot better than the $25 vacuum pump system. You just put this one on the brake bleeder screw, make sure it's sealed on there good, and then you hang it up here somewhere. We're gonna go ahead and open the screw up. Now I'm gonna go in the truck and push the brake pedal. And you can see the brake fluid starting to come through the system already. But down here in the bottom, I can actually see some bubbles right in there. So I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna push the pedal again. Now I can see There's one bubble in it right here, but the rest of the hose looks like it's completely clean. And as you can see, we filled up half our bottle with that one. So I'm gonna push it again just to clear out that one bubble. I don't want to fill up the bottle completely, but if we come and look at our hose, it is completely free of any bubbles whatsoever. Now we can just tighten our bleeder screw back down. So basically the way this system works is you hang this above your brake bleeder screw, and that way any air bubbles, they come out, you can kind of see them rise. It also keeps, once you clear the line of any air, it also keeps it basically sealed up until you tighten that screw again. And it's super simple, super easy to use. So now we should be ready to put our wheels back on. So we put our wheels and tires back on, and then made sure we put our cap back on our master cylinder, and then we took the truck for a test drive. It is a world of difference. It definitely fixed the issue that I was having with the brakes feeling like they were dragging. They were a little bit slow when you go to hit the brakes, and it seemed like they took a little time to react. And then sometimes they'd kind of, if you hit them a little quick, it'd veer to one side just a little bit. And then whenever you let off the pedal, then the brakes didn't release. So I can still feel just a hair of sponginess in there. I've only bled the front brakes, and I really should have bled all four all the way around, because where those lines were loose, it could have let air into the system. So I am going to go through and jack the truck back up and start from the back corner like I was talking about earlier in the video, and starting the farthest point from the master cylinder and working my way to the closest point. I'm going to do that because even last time that I worked on the brakes, when I changed the calipers, I didn't bleed the back brakes either. So I think that, that is causing them to feel just a hair spongy, but they release and they react quickly with the pedal, which they were not doing before. And I believe that this is 100% the fix to the problem. So this video ended up being a lot longer than I wanted it to be. I really got into this thinking that, I was going to get in here, I was going to change them out, and really to change those lines, I mean, you could do that in 20 minutes per side, maybe even less. But I ran into issues. I sat there for probably 45 minutes trying to get that vacuum pump to work, and still never did, and had to resort back to my old standard little bottle that came from Harbor Freight that was like less than $5 at the time that I got it. I think I paid $3 for that thing. They might be like $6 or something now. But that is the best setup for a one-person brake bleeder, unless I was just doing something wrong. But I've read those directions and tried to work that thing, and I could not get it to work. Even after using the old system and getting clear fluid through the lines, then I hooked that thing back up and I still couldn't pull fluid through the lines with it. So I'm so disappointed with that. But for all the things that I've used in today's videos, those brake hoses, the one-man bleeder system, I will put links in the description below for those. That way you'll know exactly what I used. Now, that one did come from Harbor Freight, but Amazon has those same exact things that you can order and have them shipped right to your house. But anyways, I couldn't be happier with the results from this. Those brake hoses you wouldn't think would be such a big deal, but whenever this originally happened, I thought, well, my calipers are going bad. And now, thinking back on it, I probably could have saved the money on replacing the calipers and just replaced those brake hoses, and it would have been perfectly fine, because after I changed the calipers, I still had the same exact problem. Also, a lot of this stuff in here, you can kind of, I'm thinking and talking about as I'm doing it, and I do one thing on one side and do something on the other, because I've never done this job before, and I'm not a mechanic, and I'm just kind of showing you that with a few tools that you can accomplish this kind of stuff yourself, and sharing how to do it on this video. So anyways, if you enjoyed today's video or found it helpful, I'd appreciate you hitting that thumbs up button. It'd really be a big help to the channel. Also, like I say, I'll leave those links in the description below for the parts that I ended up using on this and the things that I would recommend to get the job done, such as that one-person bleeder system. Also, don't forget to get brake fluid ahead of time, because you have to add brake fluid to this. It uses quite a bit whenever you unhook those calipers and that fluid comes out of there and all that lines and stuff drains out. It uses a lot of brake fluid, so make sure you get plenty of that. to be able to add back to the system. So thanks again for watching the video, and I've said in the past that I was going to have a 10-year review on this truck. I am going to do that, just bear with me. That video is going to be coming out here pretty soon. I've just had a whole bunch of other things that's kind of come up and things that are happening in front of it, and I haven't been able to put that together quite yet, but I am working on it. So you should be seeing that here in the next little bit.